Hello, and welcome to the training Facilitating Professional Student Voice Cohorts. The audio today is by myself, Allyson Baptiste. I am a part of Kern County Foster Youth Services and Homeless Education Coordinating Program, which is a part of Kern County Superintendent of Schools. What is a student voice cohort? Many of you might have heard the term cohort before, but a student voice cohort is very specific. A professional student voice cohort is a group of school personnel committed to learning together. It's similar to a professional learning community. The cohort will learn about student voice best practices, design student voice projects, and receive technical assistance when implementing those projects on their school sites. University of Pennsylvania did a study to see what are the benefits of cohorts in general. If you have not been a part of a cohort, then here's some benefits that you can learn from. Or if you have been a part of a cohort in the past, you may recognize that you had some of these benefits. The first benefit is collaboration. So being a part of a cohort in general facilitates social interactions and collaboration with your peers. It provides you support. It connects you to the support of peers and faculty, especially those that you may not have had connections with prior to this experience. There's structure to a cohort. So cohorts provide structure in terms of due dates and discussion forums. Oftentimes, when someone is doing self-based learning or self-paced learning, or they are trying to do research or understand projects or items or develop projects or items on their own, they don't have the structure that they need. So when other people are in a cohort and hold you accountable for due dates and also hold you accountable for discussing and moving your project forward, that provides a lot of structure that a lot of people need. Another benefit of a cohort is perspective. It's always great to be exposed to other people's opinions, experiences, and ideas. When you're in a cohort, such as a student voice cohort, where everyone is focused on the same idea, such as student voice projects, the other individuals in the cohort may expose you to some opinions, ideas that you had not thought of before to improve your project. And then the last real benefit of a cohort is networking. Cohorts make it very easy to meet other professionals and expand your professional network. So not only can you get that support from peers and faculty, but you can get more networking experience and be attached to more resources that you might not have known were available to you otherwise. In Kern County, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools facilitates a student voice cohort for the LEAs within Kern County. There are different members of the Kern County Student Voice Cohort. The Student Voice Cohort in Kern is comprised of school personnel from multiple LEAs, and some of the individuals work for K-8 districts, some work for high school districts, some work for charter schools, and some work for community school programs. This specific cohort meets monthly via Zoom. The reason the meetings are via Zoom is because Kern County as a whole has a very large geographical area. And so in order to get multiple participants and be able to open this experience up to all LEAs, despite where they reside, Zoom is the most practical for a community like Kern County. Other smaller communities may be able to do these meetings in person if the geographic distance does not create a barrier. And then the KCSOS Foster and Homeless Education Program, which is the Kern COE, do staff this experience. So we facilitate the cohort and we ensure that the meetings are set. We do all of the facilitation items around what needs to make sure is done in order to keep the cohort running. So who should be invited to join a student voice cohort? Because student voice initiatives in this regard are really focused on improving the challenges that homeless youth face with school, We want to make sure our McKinney-Vento LEA liaisons are invited. It would be fantastic if all McKinney-Vento liaisons for all LEAs participated. You also want to make sure that the school and district administrators are invited. Oftentimes, if only a liaison or counselor from a school district is on the cohort, they will still need to communicate their ideas to school and district administrators in order to get their buy-in. So if you can invite the school and district administrators to participate in the cohort, that will remove some barriers. Others that should be invited would be those that are formal adult supporters of student voice clubs or organizations. So that would be similar to an adult advisor of a youth advisory board on a school campus. You also would want to invite classroom educators who are interested and willing to participate in student voice initiatives. And then, of course, you want to invite district and school site counselors and social workers who can also help move along student voice initiatives on campus. When running a cohort, you're going to make the agenda make sense for whatever the needs are of the individuals within the cohort. However, with the Kern County student voice cohort, we have found that this typical type of agenda works best for us. So it would be a recommendation to maybe at least try this first. At the beginning of every meeting, we do introductions or we do a welcome activity if people remember each other. And then we move on, and the facilitators of the student voice cohort always do a mini training or an overview of a student voice best practice. So maybe for 20 to 30 minutes, one of the facilitators can actually do a mini training on best practices such as utilizing youth advisory board, how to do appropriate evaluation and monitoring of student voice projects, items that are important to understand when implementing student voice projects, such as what is tokenism and how can we avoid it. After we do a mini training, then we move on and we have a large discussion with all cohort members on what projects, student voice projects they're currently working on. And during that time, we will answer questions, provide technical assistance, and they will get feedback from the entire group about concerns or barriers they're encountering. After we talk about all the student voice projects that they're currently working on, we move into more of an informal roundtable discussion related to potential student voice projects for the future, other questions about that cohort members may have about some types of best practices, and we discuss any additional project barriers that were not brought up during the third point of the agenda. And then lastly, we always open up the option to our student voice cohort members to schedule individual TA meetings with us if they want to. So this would mean that you would open up scheduling for the student voice cohort members. Some of them may not feel comfortable speaking about all the barriers they're encountering in front of the whole cohort, or they could have a lot more specific questions and need a much longer meeting just focused on them. So it's important to offer up individual technical assistance to any cohort member outside of the meeting as well. As I discussed, at the beginning of every meeting, we do like to do a short mini training on some kind of student voice best practice to teach the cohort members some type of best practice as we go through this learning community. The cohort is not just about networking and providing feedback. It is also about continued learning and continuous improvement. So on the www.kern.org/HIP website, under the Student Voice Cohorts tab, you can click and actually see a sample presentation that KCSOS provided to the Kern County Student Voice Cohort in May of 2023. This specific best practice training was done on the best practice of evaluations and monitoring of student voice projects. But I encourage you to take a look at the slides and see how our team has facilitated these best practice mini trainings in the past. Now, as a cohort facilitator for a student voice cohort, these are some lessons I have learned. The first lesson, which is the most important, is it's okay if you don't always know the answer. Many LEAs or COEs may hold back on trying to implement a student voice cohort for fear that they don't know enough about student voice projects or research. But it's okay if you don't always know the answer. The important thing is to just get started and try to facilitate the experience. Because this is a cohort, you can use it similar to a professional learning community where cohort members can actually help provide feedback and advice to other cohort members. You do not always have to have the answer. Sometimes you can open it up for discussion and allow other cohort members to provide feedback. Another lesson learned is to send reminder emails. The professionals who would be involved in a student voice cohort are very, very busy people. So the times in which I have sent multiple reminder emails, those meetings are the most well attended. I would also encourage sending Outlook event invites so it's already planned on someone's calendar weeks in advance. Another lesson learned is if your COE or LEA is able to provide some kind of financial support for student voice projects for your cohort members, that is fantastic. So if you have some kind of funding and you can provide funding in terms of mini grants, for example, that really helps this mission move along and at least get some people started. Some LEAs may need mini grants for things like cameras if they're going to do a student voice photojournalism project. They may need financial support for art supplies if they're going to have the students do student voice in art, etc. Another lesson learned is to do your own research on student voice best practices. Even though you don't always need to know the answer, you do at least need to know the basics of student voice. As any leader, it is important to learn from other communities and experts in the field. Feel free to go on our www.kern.org/HIP website under the research tab and learn more about some research studies that support student voice work. Also, I encourage you to really just do your own research on student voice best practices. And then the last lesson learned as a cohort facilitator is to be willing to do presentations to cohort members, LEA administrators. There have been multiple times in which cohort members have said that they need a little bit extra help in pushing their administrators forward to really acknowledge and support student voice projects for their LEAs. So I, as a cohort facilitator, have volunteered multiple times to speak to administrators at these LEAs to do a mini student voice training to set the stage for the cohort members to then get the okay to create individual LEA student voice projects. Oftentimes, just having an outsider come in and do a basic student voice training for administrators on the benefits of student voice can assist them in understanding why then their cohort member is coming and asking for time or resources to implement a certain student voice project. So, how do you determine or evaluate if a student voice cohort is actually helpful? At the beginning of every school year and at the end of every school year, it's important to provide evaluations to the student voice cohort members on what they've learned and how they've actually utilized those skills to implement projects. So for example, that's why we did a training on a best practice about evaluation and monitoring. because then we could actually ask this cohort members at the end of the school year if they've used evaluation and monitoring within their own LEA student voice projects and how that went. Another way to determine if the cohort is helping is to give surveys at the end of every cohort meeting. So evaluations at the beginning and end of the school year are really great because they provide more information, but giving very short surveys at the end of every cohort meeting are also helpful because they can determine how helpful that individual meeting was and what cohort members want out of future meetings. In addition, you want to keep yourself available to do one-on-one TA assistance sessions outside of cohort meetings, which I briefly mentioned earlier. Doing one-on-one technical assistance is one of the duties that you have as a cohort facilitator outside of just hosting monthly meetings. As a student voice cohort facilitator, you should provide cohort members with dates or times you are available to provide one-on-one technical assistance to them. You can do this via drop-in hours or scheduled appointments. During these sessions, you can assist the cohort members with brainstorming, planning, implementing, and evaluating student voice projects at their LEAs. Many cohort members will probably need one-on-one technical assistance unless they've had student voice projects implemented in the past on their school site or LEA, so that they can get that additional assistance they need and more time with you to really brainstorm and go through the different aspects of planning, implementing, and evaluating their projects. So that was a short session on how to run a student voice cohort for your LEA or COE. If you have questions about other parts of student voice initiatives, please check out our www.kern.org/HIP website to view our e-toolkit and other trainings. And if you need more individual coaching on creating a student voice cohort, please email fosteredcoordinator@kern.org. Thank you.